Hello, Wellness Warriors. This is Tony Forsyth. As we are getting ready to start our 30 Days to Healthy Living and Beyond on Monday, I wanted to go ahead and get some information out there to you guys about the nutrition piece. The nutrition piece is really the most important piece. You just can't supplement a bad diet. So there are a couple of different plans out there. I thought I'd go over the nutrition plans and then a little bit about meal planning because I like to meal plan on Friday night, and that way I'm ready to go for the next week. So I wanted to get this out there. On the Healthy Living website that I posted out there, there is a support material tab, and that's where everything is. But I want you to focus on the two different plans you'll find. Both are elimination plans. So one is just a little bit more intense than the other one, and I'm going to go through why we would do something like that. But the program guide, you can print off of that tab the support material tab. I'm going to be focusing on page 9 because at minimum, what you're going to want to follow is the 30-day healthy living plan that's listed on that page 9 in that support guide. And that includes eliminating wheat and gluten, dairy, refined sugar, alcohol, soy, and corn. At minimum, that's what you want to do. So you'll find that, like I said, in that program guide, but also you'll see an elimination nutrition plan posted out there. That is the official elimination plan from the Institute for Functional Medicine. That is what I use on patients every day at work to figure out any kind of health problems or anything like that. Food sensitivities, that is the gold standard for figuring out any kind of food sensitivities and so forth. So I'm going to go through again why you would even follow something like that. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm just going to try to turn this around here and then see if you guys can see that. Hopefully you can see that. Let me aim that down. Here we go. And then I'll turn it back around when I'm done so you can. Okay. So basically, and I can post this out there too, but what I always tell people when they look at the elimination nutrition plan, which is behind this, and again, I encourage you to print that off. You'll see the elimination. I hate the word diet. I always cross that out because this is not a diet. I always say someday there'll be an app where you'll be able to put in your preferences, put in your genetics, put in, your biomarkers and labs and things like that, and it'll spit out a plan just for you. And unfortunately, we don't have that yet. So that's what we use the elimination nutrition plan for, is to really figure out what your perfect plan is and what nourishes your body. And why do we do something like that? So I always draw this. I have this printed out for you, but I usually just draw it for patients to see. So I always draw a hole here, and then I draw this line down to the other hole. This is your mouth hole, and this is your other end hole. And I draw this because besides my husband always telling me I need to be an attorney because I always ask why, I'm a big believer in, you can't just tell somebody to do something. You have to explain why they're doing it. And for the last 8 years, I've done this, and time again, I have patients come in and say, they tell me this analogy, and it gives them a picture with a why to follow what they're following. So again, just to go over this is your mouth hole, and this is your other end hole. Between here and here, if I pulled this tube out that connects these two holes and stretched it out, it would be as big as a doubles tennis court, depending on who you ask, but it's big. And it's very, very thin. The mucosal barrier lining that lines this is only 1 cell thick. So it's very thin. And to me, I'm always shocked by that, considering 75% of your immune system lies between that hole and that hole. Your immune system is the most powerful system in your body. The diseases that come out of it are some of the most disabling. So again, 75% between here and here. Your immune system is a system that protects you, right? It's your army. It's like your little army. And so hence the army guys here. And it stands guard for you and protects you, but it also senses everything that comes in. Is it friend or foe? Friend or foe? Do I let it in from, we talk about food first because you take in about 5 tons of food over a lifetime, but do I let it into the bloodstream to be metabolized and utilized by the body? Or do I kick it on out? So I always, show a little picture of me with my dukes up, protecting and fighting, sensing, friend or foe, friend or foe. It's kind of like the analogy I use is if these guys, these little army guys, were a window or the windshield of your car, and you're throwing pebbles at it. And the pebbles could be any of these things listed over here and food. So, it could be wheat and gluten for some, dairy for others. And I'll share a patient story about dairy with you soon. But ibuprofen, 7 days of antibiotics, 3 days of ibuprofen, long-term antacid blocker, or, acid blockers or antacids, processed food, bad fats, viruses, bacteria. Any of these things can cause problems. And it's like the pebbles being thrown at your windshield, right? Your windshield being your army guys. It can protect it for a long time. Most of us get by for decades without any issues or minimal issues, unless you're the 51-year-old lady that I saw recently who had very disfigured hands and a very disabling disease. She was diagnosed at 16 with rheumatoid arthritis. As she recalled, when she was a child, sitting on the back of her dad's tractor playing in the pink pesticide-bathed corn that smelled really good. Well, for her, that exacerbated this whole problem. But for most of us, like I said, nothing happens to our windshield, if you will, as pebbles are being thrown, but eventually something's going to crack, and something, when that cracks, it becomes unstable and eventually knocks these guys down, right? Hence the X, and it breaches that 1 cell thick barrier. And now you've got crap coming into your bloodstream that's not supposed to be there. What's your immune system's only response to these foreign agents in there? Well, alert, the only way it alarms you is with inflammation. Crank up the gas stove, right? Get that inflammation going. So inflammation is a wonderful thing if it's acute. If you cut your leg, you need inflammation to heal. But when it goes chronic or goes awry, that's when it's a problem, and that's where inflammation is the hallmark of chronic disease. So we want it's like a boiling pot. If you think about your immune system as a boiling pot, we don't want it boiling. We don't want it simmering. We want it cooled. Because if it's simmering, that's when you have all those weird symptoms that no one can put their finger on. Degenerative eye problems and headaches and muscle aches and joint pain and, rashes and weird things, stomach pains that no one can put their finger on. And then all of a sudden you become crazy because you've got all these, issues that no one can put their finger on, and they just keep going and going until eventually your pot boils and boils over. And now we can diagnose you with, interstitial cystitis or whatever it is and write a prescription. Well, we want to turn that boat around. We want to get that pot from a boil or a simmer to a completely cool. And that's what this 30-day nutrition plan is all about. So if you're following either plan, like I said, you win with either plan. If you really are motivated and you really want to figure out some health issues, then the elimination food plan is for you. So what I want you to think about, I always go through, and I don't know if you can see the top of this. I always go through kind of my food philosophy. I always go through the why, the what, the how often, and last but not least, the how much, because we've got it completely backwards in America. We are so focused on the how much all the time. I always say we're white knuckling weight loss in America. I mean, if you're living off of points and, saving up your points for this and that and worried about, not eating and how much you're eating and all that, if you get these other things right, you have to worry less about that. So I always start with the why. Why am I even doing this? Well, obviously, you guys have your reasons for joining this program, your health issues, your weight, whatever it is. But I always start with the why, with circling the vegetables. So those are the most important thing on your plate. The reason that is the vegetables, going back, this is your why. Vegetables, if you think about what's important about vegetables, your mom always says, eat your vegetables. But what's important about vegetables is all the colors in the vegetables. Vegetables have something called, and fruits, but there's no phytonutrients in fruits that you can't get in vegetables. So these phytonutrients or phytochemicals, plants have had to survive, right, for millions of years, and they've evolved to create these phytonutrients or chemicals that protect them, right? So they're found in the blues, the purples, the greens, the oranges, the yellows, the whites, the brown. All of these things have different phytonutrients in them that give you different benefits for your health, if you will. So plants, if you think about it, they can't jog down and get a drink from the pond when they want, or swat bugs away or hide from the sun. They have to be strong. And so they've created these things. And in turn, these phytonutrients protect us. So international experts are saying 9 to 15 servings. I always put 7 to 9 on this. And then I write unlimited, because these are unlimited. You can literally eat all day long as much as you want. And it's very important to do so. Also, we used to think that it was just calories in, calories out. Well, just as recently as 2005, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, the founder of the Institute for Functional Medicine, discovered, and it was his most exciting discovery in all 40 years of his research. We used to think that phytochemicals just landed on the cell receptor and communicated, and that was that. And he said, oh no, in 2005, he discovered it's much more intricate than that. Phytonutrients speak to our genes through something called the kinase network and can turn good genes on and bad genes off, or vice versa. So now all of a sudden, this is why going off of points and saving up your points or whatever is going on, whatever you're doing, doesn't really work long term as far as nourishing your body. You may see some weight loss, but are you really nourishing at that cellular level the inside of your body? Because it's not just calories in, calories out. Food now becomes information, and you have to be thinking about what kind of information you're putting in your body. So if you have a handful of M&Ms and a whole thing of broccoli, they're both 200 calories, but they're vastly different information to your cells. So that's why I start with the why, and then I go into the what. So the what are you even supposed to be eating? I circle protein, I circle dairy alternatives, fats and oils, nuts and seeds. We've got legumes, and then we've got starchy vegetables, fruits, gluten-free grains, and then all your beverages, spices, and condiments. So I circle that, and then I come back and I also star proteins and fats and oils. Those are your 3 main areas. And then also, and you'll see on that page 9 of your Getting Started, you'll see a little plate that's mostly veggies. And I'll put this out in front here. This is what I'm talking about here. This little plate here on page 9 that you can go to that support material on the website and print off. Mostly veggies, then protein, and then good fats, and then lastly, carbs. So complex carbs. I'm on a lot of these international weight loss blogs and things like that on Facebook that I go to and just monitor to see where people are at, what they're thinking, because it helps me, it helps my patients. But somebody posted the other day about being hungry. They're hungry as heck by 11, 12, not even lunchtime. What should they do? And this and that. Well, I always throw in some complex carbs. So you'll see carbs listed there. So things like sweet potatoes, quinoa, brown rice, even plantains. So my advice was fry a plantain in coconut oil and make sure you're getting plenty of fats and protein to carry you. So if you think about the reason I star protein, how important protein is, your body, every molecule and cell in your body is made up of essentially 9 essential amino acids, right? And those are broken down. And if you think about your DNA, so your carrier of your genetic information, its only job is to take these amino acids and put them back together, right? And create these different proteins that make up, again, every molecule and every cell in your body. So that's literally your DNA's only job. The other thing is cellular communication depends on protein. Your cells, how do they communicate? Well, they talk. And if there's not, and the cellular or the chemical messengers like neurotransmitters are made of protein. So your cells can't talk and can't communicate, can't do what you're expecting your body to do if you're not getting enough protein. And then also, how do they, you have little ears, I call them, that are your cell receptors. So how do your cells hear? They hear from their little receptors or their little ears that are built up in like a little ear. And what's that made out of? Protein, so again, absolutely important. And then fats and oils. I always say, most of your brain is made up of fat, a big blob of fat. Every cell in your body is encased in healthy fat. You have to have healthy fats. Gone are the 1980s and 90s. What made me really sick when I was living in that, time when you could eat a whole box of Snackwell's cookies, but God forbid you had an avocado. Okay, how often you have to eat. Some people find they have to eat more often. And some people are very full, depending on, again, what you're eating. If you're getting plenty of fats and proteins and carbs in the morning and that sort of thing, the complex carbs, and you're full, then people always say, can I skip through lunch? Well, I say eat something. You have to be prepared to eat something, because then by 3, if you're starving and you're at work and you can't, you can't make good decisions. So eat a little bit, even if you feel full. And I always go through, so it'll say on here what you're eliminating down here. So if you're following the official elimination food plan, it gets rid of beef, it gets rid of eggs. Eggs are the perfect food if you can handle it. It just gets rid of higher allergen foods. So soy, pork, shellfish. You're getting rid of, I said soy, you're getting rid of dairy, so you can have dairy alternatives, but just go through, don't live in the eliminate. Be aware of it, but don't dwell on it. It's kind of like a kid in the candy store that if you say no, it's 30 days. We can do anything for 30 days. And then I will go through officially how to add things back so you can start determining what is nourishing your body and what is hurting your body. We're getting rid of peanuts and peanut butter, but you can still have other nut butter. Dairy, so proteins, I'll put up here 7 to 9. And again, it goes through I don't want you measuring stuff. I think that's too much. I'm not a big measuring person. For example, avocado, I'm not going to scrape out 2 tablespoons of avocado. I'm eating the whole thing. I'm at least halving it with my husband. And I know if I'm supposed to get around 4 to 6 fats and oils a day, I'm doing pretty good there if I eat a whole avocado. Dairy alternatives, you can do 1 to 2. You don't have to do dairy alternatives. Legumes, you don't have to do legumes. Hummus, I always warn people, be careful. Hummus can have a lot of crappy ingredients. It's easy to make your own hummus, put it in the fridge, or there's some organic hummuses out there with decent ingredients. I always say on your ingredient labels, I think I talk about this during the month, but if your 3rd grader can't read them or doesn't know what it is, then it's probably not a good idea. But legumes, say 1 to 2, nuts and seeds 1 to 2, and these all have different benefits. So like Brazil nuts, for example, lots of selenium. They're great for thyroid. They're great for your immune system. So there's all kinds of benefits to that. I've already gone through the starchy vegetables. The non-starchy are unlimited, but the starchy vegetables, usually say 1 to 2, they convert to sugar easier. I don't like white potatoes, but purple, red, sweet. Like I said, plantain, if you've never had a plantain, it's great fried in coconut oil. So you can look at that and what to eliminate. We're getting rid of corn and potatoes, and then fruits 1 to 2. A lot of people will come in. I always go over this because people will come in and they're on the plan, but they're not living. I always like to show you where to live on the plan. They'll come in and they're living in grains and they're living in fruits and they're living in, dairy alternatives and that sort of thing, but they're getting like 1 or 2 vegetables. So I like to put this on here just to show you kind of where to live. In the same breath, I don't expect you to come in here and if I say 7 to 9 servings of vegetables, I don't expect you to wake up tomorrow and get 9 servings of vegetables. You would probably want to punch me because your bowels would completely change. Most people I see are only getting like 1 to 3 servings. So if a realistic goal for you, if you're in that 1 to 3, is to get 5 twice a week, hey, that's somewhere to start. That's all. This is about transitioning to a healthier lifestyle, not being perfect. Perfect doesn't last. That's like on January 1st when everybody went out to the gym and they're going to work out 3 hours a day. And by today, they're so worn out and they're like, this is not even realistic. That's not what I want for you. I want you to transition to a healthy lifestyle to where it becomes habit, and it takes a while for your body to shift, and that's all there is to it. So starchy vegetables, I mentioned. Fruits, again, no strawberries are listed. I know a lot of the recipes for shakes have strawberries. Officially on here, if you're following this, you can get rid of it. A lot of people ask me, why strawberries? And I always say it's a higher allergen. I had a lady last week, though, that I went through this with, and I said, oh, and by the way, no strawberries. And she's like, well, duh. She goes, they make me itch all over. And I'm like, well, most people don't really know that. So gluten-free grains, again, not something that you need, but it's nice to, you can have one of those. I always call quinoa out. It's always listed under grain. It's a higher carb. It's actually not a grain, even though it's referred to as one. It's a seed, but it's one of the only plant sources that make up a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. So I always call that out for people who struggle in their protein to kind of, that could sometimes be called out and used as protein. And then green tea is always nice. You can have any of this, but green tea and water are very important. Green tea helps with liver enzymes, and you're going to, by naturally following this, getting more vegetables and that sort of thing, you're going to be putting your body into a little bit of a cleanse. Your liver, you want to make sure you are optimizing that, and green tea helps in that area. Also, your cruciferous vegetables help with that as well. So, all right. That is that. I'm going to turn this around now. So those are the 2 plans. And like I said, at minimum, you want to be following, let me straighten this up a little bit. At minimum, you want to be following what's listed as part of that 30-day on page 9, like I said. And, meal planning. That's what I wanted to go through. So I like to meal plan on Fridays. It's not something I look forward to, but I don't see one person at the store with a list, and I'm always curious what they do, how they know what to buy, and then they get home, a lot of New Year's resolutions are to eat healthier, and you get home with all of this stuff, and then you get home from work, and you're not sure what to do the first day, and so I'm not sure how that, I used to do that, but I used to call cooking, eating out of, I would buy some ground beef and then buy the Sloppy Joe can. For me, that was cooking. So I want to teach you guys that cooking, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be hard. If you know how to read, there are really simple things out there that are very healthy. I think, the food industry, not to be this conspiracy theorist, but they make it very confusing and they make it hard because guess what? A confused mind says no, and it keeps you buying that junk, and it keeps you not at your optimal health and wellness. So I want to teach you to make this realistic and make it doable. So what I do is on Fridays, I come home. Now, if you want more advice on this, I'll be happy to post it and give you like meal planning tips as far as online. There's apps for meal planning. I'm still a pen and paper kind of person. So on Friday, like I said, I don't really look forward to this, but it's a lot less stress to do it on Friday and have the whole week ready than to get home every night and go, oh my gosh, what are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? I promise, just try this. Give it a try. You've got 30 days. What do you have to lose? Nothing. So I get a piece of paper. I don't usually write with Sharpie, but I did this so you guys could see it easier. And I posted this on an example of how messy my real meal plan is from this last week when I went shopping. So you guys can look at that, and I'll post more of these. But I grab a piece of paper, and usually a printed piece of paper, like a printer out of I just go to my printer, open it up, pull a piece of paper out, and I go through and I write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then I get my calendar because, again, I'm all about teaching you guys how to fish, right? Not just giving you a fish, not here's your meal plan, but teaching you how to fish, because that's what's going to be long lasting. And the thing is not every meal plan works with my week. And so I like to personalize it. So I go in, I write this, and then I get my calendar out. And I put, okay, Monday I work. I know I'm going to be busy that day, so it's going to have to be easy. Tuesday, kids have wrestling practice. Wednesday, I work, my husband's out of town. Thursday, I'm out of town. Whatever that looks like, you want to write that in, because if I don't get home until 6 o'clock on Wednesday and my husband's out of town, I'm not going to be able to do this Bon Appetit fancy recipe in enough time to get my kids fed and, get on with the evening. So it's going to have to be either ready and pre-made, ready to go in, or it's going to have to be something super simple like chicken chili that I can whip together in 5 minutes. So those are the kinds of things I want you to plan for. I put an example like salmon, potatoes. I do this easy baked salmon. I do potatoes, and I do like steamed broccoli. And as a matter of fact, that meal can be done in a rice cooker. Believe it or not, a $30 rice cooker from Walmart. You can slap that meal in and it can be done in a matter of 20 minutes or so. But this is easy. I just roast the potatoes. That takes the longest. And then when those are almost done, I put it in the bottom and I do my salmon. And then I'm steaming my broccoli. I know I'm going to do that meal every week. That is something so simple I have memorized. And it's usually on a night that I'm home late. My husband can put it in when he's done with work. And then the other meal that I do is every week. At the end, usually on Friday, I'm taking all of those vegetables that I bought and that I haven't used. Because, some things you'll use some, I don't know, like celery or something, and you won't use all of it. So how I get rid of all of that instead of it going to waste is I do a soup at the end of the week. And this is perfect weather for stuff like this. So the end of the week, I will ground some ground turkey. Sometimes I do like a vegetarian night. I won't even use the ground turkey. I'll use quinoa instead. But I'll brown the turkey generally, and I'll throw in some chicken broth, and then I'll cut every vegetable up under the sun that I have left over. I don't care what it is. And I throw it in the pot and cook it down. And like I said, if I'm not using the turkey, I'll use the quinoa. That is an easy meal. If there's only 2 of you and you're not cooking, or there's 1 of you, you're not cooking. I have 3 boys. I don't have leftovers, unfortunately, anymore. But those were great when I had them. But if you cook for less people, you can put that in glass storage containers, and you can even parse it out for another dinner for 2 of you, or a couple of different lunches, or start putting that in the freezer. And before you know it, you're only cooking a couple nights because you've got so much that you need to pull from out of the freezer. And then after I got this all down, and I'm going to show you a couple of other books that I have and some tricks for meal planning. Then I go over here and I write down what I need. So I wrote salmon. I like fresh dill on my salmon. In the summer, I'm growing a little bit outside, but it's winter, I don't have any. Purple potatoes, broccoli, ground turkey, chicken broth, whatever I have. Sometimes if I don't know, like if you're just starting to do this, you won't have a lot of the seasonings. Put some money toward some really good seasonings because they last a long time. And before you know it, like I can pull recipes up now because I've been doing this for so long that I have most of the stuff. But initially, you may have to buy a little bit extra, but they last a long time. So write those down. If there's something that you don't know whether you have or not, oh, I might have a frozen ground turkey in the freezer, put a little question mark by it, and then finish. That way you don't have to get up. You're not interrupted. You're not, oh, let me go do these 15 things. Oh my God, it's still not done yet. Just get it done. And then you can go in before you go to the store. I usually go on Saturday morning or at some point on Saturday. And then you can check off, oh, I do have ground turkey, so I don't need that. And then you can finish that. And then that becomes your grocery list that you take to the store. As you're shopping, you're checking these things off. And then when you come home, it goes on your refrigerator or wherever. That way you know. And if I'm using cookbooks, like I posted the thyroid cookbook that anybody can use, but I'll come over here and I'll put the little book. I'll put thyroid book, page 293 or whatever. That way when I go back, I can remember what it is that I'm doing. Couple of other books I wanted to point out. Again, I'm not a big recipe book. Like I said, I bought them. I was all gung-ho years ago, and I find that I buy them and I like 2 or 3 things in them, and I just spent $30 on the book or whatever. So I wanted to point out some realistic ones that are, like I said, doable and really good. A couple of other ones I recommend is the 150 Healthiest 15-Minute Recipes on Earth. Almost all of these go with your plan, but even if they don't, if you find like a whole wheat in something, you can always just keep that out or replace it. If you have any questions on replacing anything, Google is my best friend for that, but also I'm here for you. So just put those out there, because if you have those questions, other people do too. But these are almost, like I said, all of them go with the plan that we're following. There was something, I'll post, there was something the other day that in that book that I didn't even know what this was. It was an ingredient, and I just Googled what to replace this with, and it was like lemon zest. I'm like, oh, that's easy. I'll just buy a lemon and that's cheaper. So I'll kind of be giving you tips along the way. In the same family, this is a really nice book too, The 150 Healthiest Slow Cooker Recipes on Earth. This is, again, almost every one in here. I've made most of them. They're all delicious and they're easy. You can throw them in. And then, when you get home from work, have a nice meal already ready. So the other things that I like to point out is I do like to sit down with my phone. Sometimes I have a stack of recipes that I have to pull from, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood and I've got my phone and it's easy. One of the things I love to do is just go into Google and you type in healthy chicken recipe, healthy eggplant recipe, healthy whatever it is, and then you can click on it, look at the ingredients, and if it's too hard or there's it's like, no, that has too much stuff in it, or no, or well, that looks good, except for I made a chili last night that I went ahead and put the corn in, but that wouldn't be compliant if you're following the elimination nutrition plan, or either one of them actually. Corn's not in. You could have just left that out. I put it in because I haven't officially started. I'm going to do this with you guys starting Monday, but it's not something that you have to put in. So again, Googling those, and sometimes I'll even just text them to me. I'll write in a text to myself Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just like I would my menu plan, and then it's an all kind of online, and I'll copy the recipe, put it into my text on each one of those days and text it to myself and my husband. That way he can help out too. So that's an easy way. And then also if you go into, I'm not a huge Pinterest user. I use it sometimes, but I find that I use it more with recipes. So if you go in and you type in, there's a autoimmune paleo diet that follows kind of what we're doing, and you can type AIP recipes or autoimmune recipes or healthy chicken recipes or whatever it is, and those will pop up, and I just save it to my 30-day folder. I just have a 30-day healthy living folder and I save that. And sometimes I go in there and I can, because that takes you out from Pinterest to all those different recipes. So it gives you a lot of different diverse recipes instead of just having the one book. So that's a couple of things I do. I encourage you to go to that website, the Healthy Living website, click on that support material. You're going to want to go ahead, and there's a meal tracker out there that you can print if you're interested. There's a dump the junk that you can read, and I know a couple of you are getting ready already, going through your pantry, just kind of getting rid of all of the stuff from clear back to Halloween candy, somebody said. So get rid of all of that. There's an MSQ that I really encourage you to fill out. It's a medical symptom questionnaire. This is what I do officially for patients. It's a head-to-toe assessment of all things symptom-wise. And it's amazing how many people, even just 10 days into following this plan, they will come down, say they score 150. When you add it all up, they'll be down to 20, and I'm like, when I first started doing this several years ago, almost 8 years ago, I was so excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, look how good you're doing. You came down to, you're at 17 on the total score. And they'd be like, oh yeah, I guess I feel okay. And I'm like, are you kidding me? If I bottled that up and put it in a pill and gave it to you, and 24 hours later, you felt that amazing, you would know. But our body changes so slowly. Sometimes we feel like that you don't really appreciate the small things that are happening. So kind of like when you bump your leg, this is why when we reintroduce food at the end of the plan, and I'll go over that, it's really important to just jot a few sentences down every day as to, what's going on when you do reintroduce something. Because I always use the analogy, I bump my leg into the side of the dresser and 3 days later I have a bruise and I can't remember what the heck happened to it. So we really want to track that progress, track our successes, and celebrate those. So that MSQ, you can fill that out, and I encourage you to do that every now and then, even once a week through the plan, fill that out. So print that for sure. There's recipe ideas out there. There's shake recipes, like 10 pages of shake recipes